Welcome back. Did you know that there were more than 46 million Americans living in poverty by the numbers as of 2011? That's 15% of the American population. A new Census Bureau report released this week paints a rather bleak picture. The median household income also decreased last year to about 50 grand before taxes. And again, that's for a family. And income inequality increased by 1.6%. That's the biggest one-year increase in almost 2 decades. Now, a third of Americans self-identify themselves as lower or lower middle class. That number up from 25% just 4 years ago. It's the picture of a nation still recovering from one of the worst economic recessions in memory. Now, one of the hidden casualties of the recession have certainly been the homeless. While much of the focus has been on the middle class, understandably, which is indeed suffering, and a shrinking class at that, in the shadows lie 1.6 million homeless children. You heard me right. Children, homeless children, nearly 2 million in the United States. Craig Blankenhorn is an internationally published photographer and grant recipient from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and he sought out to document the lives of America's homeless children, and he photographed them in cities across America, from Tampa, Florida, to Beloit, Wisconsin, to Essex County, New Jersey, and beyond. His work, it was recently featured in a photo essay titled Young and Homeless in the New York Times. He's kind enough to join us now to share some of those stories with us. Craig, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I think I speak for a lot of people, the picture of Missy, the cover photograph. Right. I'm sure a lot of people have asked. I mean, there could be a happy ending to this, but try and paint a narrative of that kid, because while the stories are all different, it kind of was a common refrain that you'd hear.
Yes, well, Missy has a horrific story. I mean, just from day one. But she, again, they all seem to have dignity within it. And she's trying as hard as she can. And she...
How old was she at the time of
the
photograph?
She's 22.
Yeah.
She looks 16, but she's 22. And she's actually said she was trained as a mechanic, but she can't go out and actually get a job because she has no money for childcare. And it's catch-22. So she's struggling, but because of that photograph, a lot of people responded and we're in the middle of setting up a trust for her kid, hopefully for a college education for her son. She already wants that with something through the Gerber Foundation, where they'll match funds if she puts money into it. So hopefully that something can happen good for her, but it's only one story out of many. Now,
you picked, as I said, spots across the map where you'd have access and people would open
Right.
their doors to your doors. They'd
Right.
open their lives to you, I guess,
Right.
a better way to say it. But one place you picked in particular was Tampa, which was obviously the site of the Republican National Convention.
Well, the reason I went to Tampa was Tampa is the #1 metropolitan area in the city for family homelessness. So we went there because of that, #1, and then the Republican convention being there. I went 2 weeks before the convention, and people were already getting moved out from downtown.
Do you think that even some of the harshest folks who want to cut into that safety net, if they tagged along with you and they met these kids and they met these fractured families, do you think their opinions would change that we got to have a minimum basement for these folks? I mean, you can't just have kids living on the street.
If you have any empathy, you would. You know, I mean, and the main refrain is childcare, childcare, childcare would be one of the simplest ways to help the families allow themselves to work.
You know, we did a special not that long ago on hunger in this country, and how so many of the people in the front lines trying to help the underfed, especially the children out there, what they combat, and how the parent in many cases tries, but they have to make a decision between buying a bus token to go to the job, or
Right.
taking the money and trying to deal with the child care, or staying home, and it's an impossible dilemma. You articulated this in this with a $4 equation and living in a motel.
Well, it was in Tampa, and it was a family that had twin 8-year-olds, boy and a girl, beautiful. And he had a job, I think he said he was building stadiums. And as the years went on, lost those jobs, and he wound up in a budget inn, which is this whole motel system that's been set up, and some are better than others. This was a bad one. So the kids couldn't even leave the room. But yeah, the only job he could get was for $4 an hour. He was working 10 hours a day at a convenience store for $4 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you feed, let alone clothe,
Right.
and then support a family on that. Bring our viewers a little closer to home to Essex, New Jersey, and you went there as well. Talk about what you found and some of the pictures and stories you captured there.
Well, they say, you know, homeless people are lazy, but it's hard work. And the family in Essex County, there's a system out there called Interfaith Ministries. And they offer up, they set up a group of whatever in the community, 6 churches. And they'll set up a night shelter for one week. So for 1 week you can stay in that church. And then the next week you move to another one. But you have to come in at 7 at night and you have to leave at 7 a.m. and find whatever you can. And so then there's a day shelter. And that particular family would take 3 different vans to get from Livingston, then they went to Montclair, where the day shelter was, and then they were going to Newark, where they were trying to go to school to become medical technicians. But they never stopped, and it was 90 degrees. I was exhausted at the end of the day. I don't know how we did it, he would go into stores and trying to cool off, find public restrooms for him. I mean, it's nonstop.
Every story different, every family different, but if there's a common refrain, they want to keep the family intact.
As Missy said, people advise her to give up her son David, but as she says, nobody can love him like she does. And she never experienced love as a child, so she wants to give it and see if she can change it.
Well, it was a phenomenal photo essay, and Craig, I really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, we're going to jump to a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have much more here on RFL.